Welcome to In Moderation,
the show where we give you a moderate dose of info, sarcasm, and we already know we're not approved.
Oh yeah, so the one thing that people don't understand about forensic pathology is that it is where medicine and the law meets. So it's not just us like, creepy weirdos in a basement like they show in movies and we're in the dark with like one of those crappy lamps from the 80s, like, no gloves digging in a dead body. That's not what it's like. There's a very like extensive process. There's a lot of science and stuff that goes into it and what we're doing and why we do different things. And so that's often something people will say to me, even other like physicians that I've shadowed and whatnot. They're like, oh, you have to go to medical school in order to be a forensic pathologist. And I'm like, yes, you do in fact need to know what you're looking at when you open up a body. Like there's
You can't
histology
just cut people
involved.
open with a chainsaw?
No, apparently not.
I mean, you can. You just might get in trouble for that one.
You can, but that was like I actually had this conversation because I recently made like a video and then a post on TikTok or whatever and an Instagram where I talked about different misconceptions about the field. And one of them was that people thinking that we don't go to medical school or that things are different and you can just show up and do whatever. And I had someone, you get trolls in the comments all the time. And this person claimed to be an anesthesiologist who's married to a forensic pathologist and said that, like, most states don't actually require that you have any kind of medical background and coroners just do whatever they want. And I was like, no, so states have laws about these things. You have to be very careful. And that's not to say that there isn't corruption. I am sure that there's different areas where people kind of just do what they want, but it's also due to like such a severe shortage and lack of resources that you kind of have to do what you got to do. And whether that be not taking cases that we should be doing or people doing, like back basement autopsies or something, like things happen, but it's not legal. And this person went off the handle. I was like, I'm pretty sure you're actually like 15-year-old boy in your parents' basement who, thinks that bones is real life, but it's not. And so they ended up blocking me because I was like, yeah, I'm not having this conversation with you if you're just going to freak out at me in my comment section. And so then they got upset and left. But there were a lot of people where I shared like a small screenshot of it on my story. And obviously, TikTok comment section leaves out a lot of context. So I had some friends message me and be like, what are we talking about? And so once I explained it to them, they understood. But even then, like, there's a lot of like back and forth between even just different forensic pathologists. And it's like this law varies by state and how it works and what they do, but it's purposely written to be vague because we're also trying to accommodate for like pathologist assistants who can also do autopsies. They just may not be able to do the final sign out, stuff like that.
I was going to ask about them because they don't necessarily need like, to go to med school or anything, right? Like the assistants, right? So maybe people are thinking of them and they're like, oh, so they don't need a degree.
Yeah. And so that was what I had originally thought too with this first person. Was not the case. But with my other friends that I was talking to, that's what they were stumped on. So when I explained that I wasn't really talking about that, then they were on board. But yeah, so they do, I think it's like a 2.5 year program. It's kind of like a master's degree. And so they go, but then they can either do forensics or they can do surge path. And in forensics, it's still a little like taboo to not be a forensic pathologist, but to be a path assistant. But I think within like the next 10 to 15 years, they're going to be more popular because there's such a shortage that it's going to be out of desperation that we need to bring more. And I think they have such a unique skill set too, that like, why would we not want to use them more if we could? Especially like they're great for natural cases and like accidents and things like that. Because at the end of the day, they can't do the official sign out. So they can do everything else. And then they basically bring the report to a forensic pathologist or a pathologist. And they're like, here you go. And then they'll look it over and then sign off. And I think this kind of varies by state too. But then even with like homicide investigations, there's like a specific way in which they can be involved. But I don't think that they can testify. So then they have to have the forensic pathologist be more involved in that way if it gets called to court. but don't quote me on that because I'm sure it's going to change
Right.
soon.
Well, you were talking about like forensic pathologists and them like had discussing with each other. I'm curious, like, what are the hot button issues among forensic pathologists, like that they argue about all the time? Like, no, it shouldn't be this way, it should be that way, or like, what's the drama in the
The
forensic
drama.
pathologist? I don't think many people have a grasp
Oh,
on that.
yeah. No, because this is going to be really funny for me to talk about because I'm always like on my social medias trying to preach about how like great forensic pathology is, but oh, there's drama. There's always drama. No matter where you go, it's going to happen. But some of the biggest things are going to be medical examiner versus coroner states. And we have some mixed states, but then even then, there's some people that are like, coroner system should be abolished. And other people are like, but no, our coroner system is great, kind of a thing. And
Can you fill us on like the difference between
yes.
those?
So medical examiners are going to typically be forensic pathologists. And in some states, they're allowed to also just be any physician, maybe even just a basic pathologist, or they can be whoever, and they're more akin to like a death investigator. And so I'll explain it this way. There's two different things. There's the death investigation side of the death care industry, and then there's like the autopsy side. So these things are going to be separate. So medical examiners in a lot of states are also going to be the same people who are doing their autopsies because they're also forensic pathologists. So they're able to do the whole kind of process. And then with coroner states, it depends. So like where I worked, we had jurisdiction in 3 different states because we were like kind of a weird little corner and we're more rural, so we have less cases. So we have where we're located in our state, we cover the eastern half. And then I think like 8 counties in the state below us, and then 10 counties in the state that's off to the side. I'm probably in the Midwest area, but I don't want to give away exactly where I am just yet. But like where I am at, you have to, so there's the regular coroners, and then there's also like the forensic specialist who's like head coroner essentially for the whole state. So we don't have a medical examiner.
King foreigner. King coroner.
Yeah, the king.
The king
and
coroner.
So those ones have to be a forensic pathologist, but the other coroners can literally be anyone.
Oh.
So I've met coroners who were like ex-cops who, and in my state, they're all
and they just have a thing
appointed
for dead bodies, and that's what they sign up for.
Yeah, apparently.
That's not, that's not worrisome at all.
Oh, yeah, that even brings in more to this drama discussion that we'll get into. And that's why a lot of people don't like the coroner system. But yeah, so where I'm at, our coroners will be appointed, but in most other states, they're elected. So they're literally like a politician. So you have to, everyone.
Like on my thing, on the ballot, like I'm like why am I voting for this? I don't feel like I should decide who the coroner is.
Yeah, and so that's also why people are very skeptical about it, because like your everyday person doesn't know what goes into an investigation or what's going on. So how do you know that that person's going to do a good job? And so, yeah, I've met coroners here who are, like I said, ex-cops. Some are morticians, and then there's a few that are like 22 years old, just graduated college and had like a criminal justice degree. Yeah. And so they've never even seen an autopsy before. And so they would come into view with me. And I'm like,
this has got to be a Fox show. Like the first day as like a coroner and you're like figuring it out. You're like, no, don't grab that. Don't grab that. Like that will explode.
Every time I do like, this is your first autopsy, I give them warnings for different things. Cause I'm like, okay, this is a bone saw. We use it to cut bones. So if you're going to pass out, go and sit down now. Or like, we draw vitreous from the eyes, so I'm going to take this needle and I'm going to put it in an eyeball. If you're going to pass out, please go sit down, kind of a thing. But yeah, and so that's the thing with coroners in a lot of places, they're not physicians. And when it comes to death investigation, let's say someone passes away and it's reported, it's going to be sent to like that coroner, and they're going to come out and they're going to look at the case and go, yeah, this needs an autopsy, or no, this doesn't need an autopsy. We'll just sign it out.
Okay.
And so basically it's like...
So if like the head's gone, they're like, yeah, we got what happened. We don't really need to look into this any further or something.
Depends, because there's also laws on which cases need an autopsy versus which ones don't. And so that's what the coroner's there
what if it's
for.
like suspected of like foul play? Like, how do you like decide? You like, oh, this person might have been killed. I don't know. Let's look into it. Like, who decides that?
So that would be the coroner.
Okay.
And so that's the frustrating part that people are upset about, is because, you know, this 23-year-old new grad who hasn't seen an autopsy before and doesn't really have experience, how are they supposed to go and decide whether something is suspicious, whether it was an accident, whether it's a natural case? Because they can sign out on things that are natural. So like,
heart attack.
Let's say, yeah. So let's say like my grandpa Joe, you know, who's 98 years old.
Whatever,
he's at home comfortably, has like a laundry list of medical problems.
Yeah.
You do a wellness check and he's not alive anymore. And so you show up and you're looking around. There's nothing suspicious. Like no one broke in, things like that. Then you're kind of more comfortable to be like, yeah, this is a natural death. We can just write it out as
But what if they
such.
find somebody at like a table with a box labeled poison and they have like a spoon and a bowl and they're like just keeled over? Just be like, I think this is foul play.
Yes.
Coroner,
and so,
call in someone.
Yep. And so that's when they would decide that there needs to be an autopsy. And so then for us specifically, they would bring it to our facility. And so like when they come in, the whole process of an autopsy is we start with an external evaluation. And so I kind of describe it to people like you're making
You ask them about their ideas and what they want to do in the afterlife and that sort of thing?
Yeah, you sit there and you talk with them. I did sometimes talk to the bodies occasionally.
I mean, I feel like you have to. Like, come on, I would totally talk to a body if that was my job.
Usually, too, it would be, you know, if I'm doing stuff, because you get used to doing a job. And so sometimes I'd move around and I'd like accidentally hit them or like,
you'd be like, oh,
drop
my bad.
Something. Yeah, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, Joe. Like, I didn't mean to do that. Things like that.
I think that's totally normal. I talk to myself. I'm definitely going to talk to a dead body.
Exactly. Sometimes I get made fun of, but I think it's normal. I'm just going to put that out there.
We talk to dogs and stuff. Why not a dead body? Neither of them understand what we're saying.
Exactly. So, for an external, basically, I describe it to people kind of like a burrito situation. So they come in a body bag. Okay. We start with pictures. You're going to take a picture of them in the bag. They have the little tag on the zipper. If it's suspected of foul play, they'll put evidence tape around the zipper too, because that tells us no one's been in the bag to mess with stuff during transport. So we'll take pictures of that to show it's all intact, and then we'll open it, and then we take more pictures just as the way they are. And then that's when we start taking notes too of like what the person's wearing, what, personal property is on their body or in the bag kind of a thing. And then you can start taking off clothes. And then we do dirty pictures, so pictures as they are that way. And then you clean them up.
And then you post them to your only dads.
Oh, God. And that's how you get the coroners. That's how there's like, I'm totally in on this. I'm signing up. I got to run for office.
That's when they start planning, making their profile, and they get tips from other people that are there to figure out how they should run. But so we go through the process, and then once that is kind of done, we've done the notes, the pictures, we'll do an x-ray too. So we have a full body x-ray called the Lodox. And so you can pull out this long table and you just roll them on there and then you scooch it on and it'll do a full body x-ray, or you can even adjust the settings. So it'll do like just the head.
I gotta know with the x-rays, have you ever looked at one and been like, oh shit, that's not supposed to, like, did you have any stories that are just like, that's not supposed to be in there? Or like,
So there was one time where we had a case, and this was before we got our Lodox. So we used to have like this really old freaking crappy ass x-ray with the tiny little cassette trays. Yep. And so I would have to do a full body x-ray using these little cassettes. So imagine me, just for context, I'm like 5'4", okay? And I'm a petite person. I'm tiny. And I'm rolling dead people who are upwards of like 400 pounds by myself to get x-rays. So imagine this tiny girl like whimpering and cramming x-ray plates. It's difficult. But there was one, because we had no idea what had happened. This person had been burned. And so they came in, and we also worked with the FBI a lot, because where I'm at, there's a lot of reservations around us. And so the way that it worked is the FBI would be involved in certain cases that way. And so they were telling us about how they think they know who it is, but they're not sure. So we're looking for different things. And so I'm taking all these x-rays. And then I pull up the one for the chest and I look at it. Giant freaking wad from a shotgun.
Oh.
Like the whole thing. So yeah, and so it was close because usually you get like the bird shot and stuff when you're further away and the shell drops or whatever. No, the whole thing was there. And so we're like, okay, so this wasn't an accidental fire that just happened to occur.
Is that what
this
killed
person
them?
was dead. Yeah. And so
they were living with that for years.
Yeah, and so when I looked at that, I was like, that's not supposed to be there. And so then they all came over and looked at it. Because at first I had no idea what it was. I was just like, there's a big blob with some little things around it. That should not be there, but it is. And I don't know what it is. And so we looked, and I think the forensic pathologist was like, oh, holy shit. Like, well, we know that this wasn't an accident anymore. So then we had to look at different things. And to identify them, we would get like dental records and stuff. But at that point in time, we were kind of looking for a general guess as to who it might be to limit it down to know who we should request records from. And so we actually looked for the pants to look at the button on the jeans because it's metal, so it survives the fire. And so we can see like this person who is missing was last known wearing these pants, and we can match the brand. And that gives us at least a little bit of wiggle room. So that way we're not asking for dental records from like 70 different missing people from everywhere. We can be like, okay, so we know it's this outfit that we saw from the person's picture that they have these pants. So at least we can narrow it down that way. And then if it still doesn't match up, that's when you would expand and like look at more. But yeah, seeing that was definitely freaky. There was another time
like swallow something, like they swallowed like something in there to hide, to like sneak it in somewhere. And you're like, oh,
little
you didn't make
bags
it.
Of drugs.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they'll do that. So there was one time where we thought we saw it and we were all like excited because we were like, oh my God, we figured it out already. Like we know what it is. Yeah, we're like, holy shit. And then once we were looking closer and we got on the inside, it was just gas. And we're like, oh, damn, okay. Because that was like the story too. Because usually when they come in, the people will tell us kind of situations surrounding the death and like what was going on, what that person was involved in. So we kind of know what to look for generally.
Like we think they hit something up their butt. Can you check it out for us?
Yeah. There was one time, I wasn't there for it, but my friend was telling me how there was a case where it was this old person who had a bright blue glittery butt plug in.
Oh, yeah, that should show up on the x-ray, right?
And so the forensic pathologist that was working that day, he is like a dad. I even call him dad because he's just great. Like every holiday, because I'm farther away from home. I'm originally from Michigan, so I have moved quite a ways to where I am now. So I don't have family to go to. So they'll have me over for like Christmas and Thanksgiving or whatever, even though we don't really like fully celebrate Thanksgiving. We just like to have each other's company, especially when you're not working that day.
Right.
So we're very close. And so anything like that is a no-go. So he just like, he noted it, but he pretended like it was not there. It was just like a no topic discussion. And so my friend Nicolette, she's like, well, do you want me to remove it? And
I'm assuming that's not what killed him. Must have been to his
Yeah. And because she was like, do we put it with his personal property and give it back to his family? Like, because families can be, obviously they're grieving. And when you're grieving, you do and say weird things. And so sometimes you might think, maybe we should throw this away. But then,
I don't know. If a relative of mine died with a glittery butt plug, I'd be like, what a baller. Like that guy, like they they were having fun, right? When they died.
Yeah. There was, so the death investigators at our office, they're usually like police officers who are, picking up extra hours and whatnot. Some of them really great. And so I was close with a few of them because they really want to implement change in the system, which is what I appreciated about them because I'm very critical of everything they do. And I let them know that on a daily basis when cops come in. Like there was one time someone had fuck 12 written on their knuckles and I held it up and I was like, you see that? Because I do. I just want you guys to know that it's there. And they would like kind of laugh. Some of them might get a little more stingy, but I also don't care because we don't work for police officers. We give them our opinion and then they suck it up if they don't like it, basically. But this one guy, Brandon is his name, he went to a scene and it was an older gentleman. walks in, Viagra bottles everywhere. And like a bunch of them were empty. And he was like, oh my God. And he gets in, sex toys all over the place. And I think this person was probably like 75 or 80. And so
Go grandpa.
and he was like, good for you.
Yeah, it's still going after it.
Look at you go. And I was like, I would have been laughing so hard because like, heck yeah, do whatever you want, live your life.
Died
oh my
happy.
God. Yeah, exactly. But oh my gosh, there's always like so many random little things. And I think people also don't realize like how much we end up knowing about you by the end. Because like I get to go through your belongings. I don't go through your phone, but like if it's still on and they have it on them, I can see like messages and stuff pop up. Or like I go through your wallet, I have to mark everything that's in your wallet and what you do. And like if there's
Like, what are
anything
you finding
in your pockets.
that's like making you like, oh, that's different, or like,
Oh, one time we found someone who had several different IDs with different names. And we're like,
nice.
oh.
That's
So sometimes
cool.
we'll make up like mini stories about them
course.
just to like
Nice.
give them a little like, you know, context to what's going on, things like that. Or some people carry around insane amounts of cash. Like I think the most cash I've counted out was like $3,000. And I was like, you just have that in your pocket? I wish.
Like business, I could see someone.
Right, yeah.
Did they also have drugs in their body? No, they're probably not the ones carrying the drugs in their body. They're
Probably
probably the
not.
ones that pay the other people to put drugs in their
Oh,
body.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you know on jeans how you have like that tiny little pocket that's like
Yes.
usually I think from yeah.
Oh, do
So
people
we call
hide shit
that
there?
Oh yeah, we call it a drug pocket. And so when we take off pants, we're always really careful about it. And you have to like pat the pockets to see if there's anything in there. And we always use the back of our hand on the outside to gently pat because if there's something sharp or whatever, you don't want to like stab yourself or hurt yourself. So you kind of like gently feel, then you take a peek inside to see and make sure, and then you can reach in and pull stuff out. And drug pocket is one that people often forget about because it's so small and most normal people don't store stuff in there. But
Yeah.
there's always something. And I have found so many drugs in that pocket. And I remember one time I had pulled something out and was like, oh yeah, definitely drugs. It was just a little wad of paper. So I started slowly unfolding it. And yeah, as I unfolded it, it was just like a line of cocaine. And I was like, there we go. So close that back up because it was just loose. And so I was sitting there and I wasn't even wearing my face mask yet. Like I think I just had it down around my chin. So I was like, put that bad boy back up.
Is hiding things in shoes common? I feel like that's got to be common. Like people like hide stuff in their shoe, or do you not find stuff in that often?
I think we've had a few things like in people's boots, but it's usually just like they'd put their phone in there or whatever.
Okay.
I've never found anything crazy, but I do know based on like other stories I've heard that people do put stuff in their shoes.
I feel like if I was hiding something, I'd put it in my shoe. I feel like that's the first place I'd go.
Right.
What I'm learning about from this podcast is that I need to carry more interesting stuff on my person in case I don't.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we're lame. Stuff. But like, if we were cool, where would we hide stuff? That's my question.
Where would you put it? I'm trying to think of like, I don't even know. Usually people aren't like super creative with hiding things. Or like something common that you'll often hear, like if someone's arrested and they find something like in their pants, they'll be like, these aren't my pants. Okay, so you just put them on and they're like, yeah, I found them and I just put them on today. Okay.
Who doesn't put on the first pair of pants they find out?
Yeah, right. And for a long time, I always thought that was ridiculous. And then I've also started working part-time at the emergency department here in town to get some more experience for like applying to med school and whatnot. And there are people who have showed up with no pants. And so I'm like, you would be the person who would put on random pants.
Yeah. If I didn't have pants and I found
you're
pants,
the perpetrator.
I put on
Might
those
as well. It's there's a lot of interesting things. And
have you ever gotten a body and they were alive? Have you ever gotten
no.
They're like,
no.
Just,
By the time they get to us, they're done.
Okay.
Like, and at least if they're not dead then, they're dead after.
Because I heard the story that like back in the day, like the graves, they'd have the little bell that was like above the grave. So that like if someone was alive, they would put a string in there and you pull the string so you're alive. And I'm like, I figure now we're better at telling if people are actually dead or not. But like, I feel like it's possible. I don't know.
I think I've heard of stories of this happening in like other countries where maybe they don't have that same kind of advancement in technology yet.
Okay.
Or access to that technology, I should also mention. But like here in the US, at least, we are pretty good about it. And at least by time that they get to us, we're going to know. Because usually
they're like cold and stiff.
Yeah. And so, I would say for us, because we were a smaller office, like people would be able to bring cases to us faster. So I think the soonest I've done an autopsy is like an hour after death, where they're still warm, and it's really, really weird to put my hands into like warm soup of intestines.
It's just weird that you're weird to like, oh, a warm body. Oh, this is gross. I'm used to my cold dead bodies.
Funny story. So where I'm at is up north, very, very cold. And in the winter, sometimes our facility didn't have good heating. And I think it got down to about 62 in the back, and I was freezing, and I get cold very easily, and then I have Raynaud's. So in my hands, when I get too cold, I can't move them anymore. I was so cold that the body was warmer than the outside environment. Yeah. So I started to put my arms into the body to warm up, because I was still working, but I was like, I can just work like
You're pulling
this.
A full-on Star Wars after he like cuts open the dead.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, just like, let me crawl in here real quick, warm up.
I was like, let me just crawl right inside. I could probably curl up and fit in here. But I was like, I got to make it work, because at the time when I was first hired, I was one of like 2 or 3 other technicians. So I was doing most cases by myself only. And usually a lot of places will have a few different techs per case. So that way you can alternate different things. And then as I worked there, we hired more and more people. But yeah, sometimes I was like, well, I can't take a break right now, so I got to warm up any way possible. And other times, if I had time for it, like I would get a bucket of hot water where I could just stick my hands in there with my gloves.
Shit, right.
Yeah,
that's
normal stuff. But, sometimes you got to make things work.
I know, I get it. Does everyone who works in this field, do they all have a dark sense of humor? I feel like it's a requirement. If you're going to work with dead bodies, you have to have a dark sense of humor.
Oh, yeah. And like, I always tell people with having dark humor, there's obviously a time and a place, but there's also a limit to what we do. So like, I would say, I can't speak for everyone because I haven't worked with everyone, but most people, I would say, we're not like making fun of the decedent. So anyone who's worried about that, we're not. Most of the time if someone comes in, I'll be like, oh my God, they have such pretty hair, or they have really pretty eyes, things like that, because I like to be nice.
Right.
But then we also have very dark humor where we will joke about things. And that is something a lot of medical students are surprised about when they come to rotate with us, is that like we're in the back, it's bright and it's big and clean, but then we're also laughing with each other. And they're like, I just expected it to be so serious. And I'm like, well, it is a serious thing.
I wasn't thinking you were laughing at the people, like specifically, but more just like laughing at death, because you're around it constantly.
Oh, yeah,
so you have to be able to just kind of laugh at it.
Yes. And there's something, I think I made a video about this a while ago, and I actually had a few people get really angry with me. So that's why I wanted to clarify that we're not laughing at the decedent.
Right.
Because people, it's hard to talk about these things because there are a lot of people who do get very sensitive about it. And it's one of those things, like, I get it, because it's not easy. Nobody likes death. It's not fun. It's not exciting. It's not the best moment in everyone's day. Like, it's that person's worst day of their whole life. And probably for that family at that time, it is also that worst moment. And so when you're working in that for so long, if you just let yourself sit there in that sadness, like, you're not going to make it.
Exactly.
You have to keep going. And so, honestly, I quoted SpongeBob a lot when I was in the morgue.
Any
firmly
scene specifically from SpongeBob? What do we like?
Oh, just like all of them. Just firmly grasp it when I was trying to like teach new technicians. And sometimes, because where I worked, we would hire undergrad students where they would come in, and so they wouldn't have any experience with it, but we wanted them to learn because they have an interest in forensic pathology. So I would teach them, and a lot of them, obviously, when you're first working on autopsies, you're being very gentle because you still have this idea of like, I don't want to hurt them, but I'm like, no, you firmly grasp it and you pull. Like, we do blunt dissection for some things, and so like when we make the Y incision, we'll go down, and then you have to reflect so you can open up that space. And when you grab it, sometimes they'll like just grab a little bit, and I'm like, no, you gotta rip it. Like, you pull and then you cut like through the fascia.
Bones were made to protect us, so in order to move them, I feel like it's gonna take some doing.
Yes, you gotta really muscle through it. And like removing intestines too, that is something we would use like manual dissection for, unless it's a very sensitive area. Then I'd pull out like scissors or something and go through it. But a lot of the techs, they would be really afraid. And one of my friends too that I'm close with, when I was first teaching him, and I would tell him like, grasp it and pull. He's like, okay, but do I pull at your strength or my strength? Like, how hard am I pulling? And I'm like, well, you don't want to rip it and make a mess, but you gotta, put some oomph into it and get it out of there. And so a lot of people have a hard time kind of working with that. So the firmly grasp it thing was always there. Or if they like didn't quite know, because there's a lot of colors, things blend in. Sometimes you don't know where the liver ends and where it, starts, the boundaries of it to cut around to get it out. So I would always go, no, the lid, Patrick, the lid, moving around. Yeah. Another one was one time the forensic pathologist was trying to do part of a case on someone, an individual who was smaller, and he couldn't get his hands in there. And I was like, your big meaty claws.
I'm curious. Does like, okay, so like, let's say like someone who's like a fighter, like who's like a mixed martial artist, they'll look at people like differently, like, oh, they'll size them up to like, like, would I be able to fight this person or something? Does working with dead people make you look at alive people in any way that's different? Just like you look at alive people, you're like, oh, I bet this would be that thing, or like whatever, just something like that.
Oh yeah. So one of my special skills was I could always find the carotid arteries right away, so like right in your neck. And I can see them on people. Like I can look at myself and I know that they're right here. Right. And then it branches down like that. And so whenever I meet new people, that's like my first thing. I look at their neck and I'm like, that's where your carotids are. Or
joke's on you. Mine's covered.
Yeah, you I can't see, but no, those are things that I just like knew because I was so used to it. And then also another
if
thing,
if somebody came up to me and said that was like the first thing they said, I'm like, we're gonna be friends. You and I, we're gonna get along well. If you're like, your carotids are right there, I'm like, I don't know anything about you, but I want to. So how are you?
Right. So my the one forensic pathologist that I was talking about, he has some kids, and when they were younger, one of them was probably like 6 or 7 years old. They knew what he did. They always did. And I think he said they were in the grocery store one time, and like the news was on like one of the little TVs because it was a smaller local one. And it was talking about like someone who had passed away. And this kid very loudly goes, "Daddy, did you cut that guy?" Well, pointing at the TV. Yeah. And he goes, "Stop. Like, we don't say that in public. They think I'm crazy now." And I'm like, well, to me in this field, you got to be a little bit crazy. So
yeah, right. Like you have to dark sense of humor. You have to be a little crazy. You got to be a little weird. I mean, like otherwise, yeah, like you said, you just won't make it. I feel like it is.
Something we will often say is you got to have like a toe over the line into serial killer so you can understand them.
But if you get your old foot there, then that's things start that's a problem.
That's when you start taking home like the liver and
mementos.
Not telling anyone. Yeah. And that's when we're concerned, and that's when you get fired.
I'll be honest, in like movies and video games, I'm like, it's probably the autopsy person. I feel like, you know what? They're probably the killer. Right. Like they're too much access to the bodies. They know too much. They're too well prepared for this.
I always will like joke around with my friends and be like, if you want me to, I can get rid of whoever's pissing you off. Like, I know what to do. And they're like, oh my God, no.
I feel like you'd be pretty good at getting away with murder because you understand like what people look for murder.
Like to tell myself that. And then realistically, because I've had a lot of very random people, when I tell them what I do, they'll be like, oh, so you could get away with murder. And I'm like, okay, realistically speaking, no, probably not. Like,
okay, but for all the murderers out there who are listening to this, all the people who want to kill someone else, what would you tell them to avoid to get caught?
Honestly, the biggest thing is going to be area dependent. If you don't want to get caught, you got to make sure you're in the right area, because and I'm not going to say which is better because I don't want people to know, but there is a specific area you can go to where it's going to be easier to not get caught.
Damn. Now I want to know how to not get caught.
Right. I know. So there was actually a forensic pathologist who wrote a book, and in it, he kind of described like the perfect murder, and he got in a lot of trouble for it.
No shit.
And so I am always careful about my stuff. I will often see people online who are like, this is what you need to do if you want to commit the perfect murder. And I'm like, wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong. One of the like biggest things that I've seen is they're like, if you inject potassium under the tongue, you can OD them on potassium. And I was like, and I waited to hear their explanation. And they always get the explanation wrong, because they'll be like, well, potassium, when you die, it decreases very rapidly. And so they won't know, which is wrong. Right after you die, potassium actually like will shoot up and it gets really high. So if you're like, we kind of have a general understanding of where it should be, that it can be in the normal high range. But if you're injecting an insane amount of potassium in there to OD someone, it's going to skyrocket, and we're going to be like, there's something wrong with that. That doesn't match up. And so that's how we'll pay attention to those things. And then I always tell people too, you have to think about these things logically. Like, sure, you could get like a diabetic syringe and needle and whatever, where it's really tiny, you can't really see the hole. But who is going to sit there and open their mouth and lift up their tongue so you can inject them? No one.
Okay, fine. Don't tell us the ways to get away. Tell us how what not to do. What are the ways that people say to kill people that you're like, oh no, you shouldn't be doing that.
That one always makes me so mad, because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, you know what? Sure, let me just open my mouth wide while you come at me with a needle. Because then they're also saying like, well, inside the mouth, that kind of tissue heals really fast. I'm like, yeah, it does heal fast when you're alive.
Yeah, when you're dead, the healing properties kind of
it doesn't work the same way when you die. And so these things always kind of make me laugh. And I think I've made videos about it in the past, and so people would ask about it. There was this one guy who's a forensic pathologist now, but like at the time he had just finished up his fellowship, and I don't think he like fully understood the context that I was talking about. So he's like, oh my gosh, like you guys can see like the needle marks from a diabetic like needle and whatnot. I'm like, no. I'm saying, obviously, I'm going to fight back. So there's probably going to be a bunch of scratches in my mouth, a bunch of tears and holes, like different things like that you're going to notice, because we look in the mouth. We go in, we'll remove the neck block with the tongue attached. So we can see all of that. Yeah. And so that's why like I have to know where the carotids are, because you don't want to cut those, because they need them for embalming when they go to a funeral home. So yeah, so I'll like dissect it away from there, and then you have to cut from underneath with a scalpel and like kind of make a little rainbow cut, and then I can reach my hand up and grab the tongue and pull it down. And so like we get to see all those things. So I'm gonna tell if there's
so when there's
damage.
like foul play thing, you're looking at everything. You're like, we're taking it all apart to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, we're going to look at everything. Pretty much everything is going to be suspicious. And so, like, when we get cases that come from the hospital, let's say the person didn't die right away at the scene, and so the ambulance takes them in, and they're trying to resuscitate this person. They've intubated them. They put in an NG tube, like all these different things. If that person passes away, we always tell them not to remove those. Leave everything in the body as is, because we don't want to look at it and then think that something else has happened. And we also want to make sure that it was done correctly. And this was something I was actually teaching one of the emergency department physicians, because he didn't know why we had asked them to do that. And so I was like, yeah, if you're intubating a person, we want to make sure you did it right? And you didn't put it down the esophagus instead of the trachea, because that would be really bad, and then they would die. Or like for IVs, we always ask that they leave them in, and we'll remove them, because if they take them out and they have all these little holes, now we're starting to think that they might be a drug addict.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at toxicology closely, and we want to make sure that we have everything as accurate as possible. And so little things like that, we're very, very like, we look at everything to make sure. Like we roll them over to look at the back, and like, I'm not kidding you, they will spread the butt cheeks and look at your butthole. Even
just to
like
make
they
sure.
do
We gotta check everything.
Yeah. Like they're looking everywhere. And so we just want to make sure that we're not going to miss something that's really important. And there was one time
like sparkly butt plugs.
That's why it's when you find a butt plug.
You never know.
Is X-ray or that first, depending.
Right. Yeah. No, it's just like there's so many weird little things that people don't think about that we're like, oh yeah, we need to make sure that we've checked this. Because then too, like let's say it goes to court and now you have to testify, and the lawyer's going to be like, well, you didn't look at their butthole, now did you? And you're going to be like, well, shit.
Damn, another wasted
You got
case.
me there. Yeah, because now they're going to be like, well, it doesn't seem like you're a very good forensic pathologist, huh? And
so they're looking for anything just to like hit you on something you did wrong, so you did other things wrong. Okay.
Yeah. Because we did one case a while ago where there was so much going on. So our office was also a teaching place. And so we took on more cases that were like naturals compared to other offices from like hospitals and things like that, where usually they would have just signed it out because, they're so busy with like homicides that they don't have the time or the resources to do every single case.
Okay.
So we do more, which is really great because we get to see a lot of different things. But we were so busy this day doing like 7 or 8 cases. And with our small typical workload compared to that, usually we do like 1 or 2 cases a day. We were everywhere. So this one person, we put him back in the cooler, that I turned around and realized, I was like, oh my gosh, we forgot to remove the neck. And so we had to pull them back out and do that. And we were panicking because the funeral home was there, like about to load them up and take them away.
Shit.
And the forensic pathologist was like, yeah, I don't want to like have this be something. And turns out they choked on like a sausage or something. And we didn't find it because we didn't remove the neck block with the tongue. And we're like, yeah, that's a good point. Like that would be really bad.
Man. Yeah, I'm sure you see. Okay, well, since we do things here that are like, about health and mostly alive people, which is like kind of our standard. Like, I'm curious, like, what do you see from like dead people that you're like, hey, I see a lot of people die this way. Maybe don't like this. I keep seeing people dead from like falling coconuts, like all the time.
Yeah,
Watch
yeah.
out for coconuts or like, whatever, maybe more likely things you have.
Oh, yeah. So every physician in any field kind of has their one thing that they like won't do or that really freaks them out. But with forensic pathology, especially, everyone has like their thing. So earlier I had mentioned when we were talking, one of our forensic pathologists, he was very like health conscious about what he ate, how he eats it, like exercise that he gets in, all that kinds of stuff. So that's his thing. Because I think one of the major things that we always see is like some kind of cardiac condition.
Right. I figure heart disease has got to be like way up there.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Pretty much everyone over the age of like 55, 60 is going to have some kind of like atherosclerosis. Like their vessels are going to be hardened. And so it's just so common. And so people don't realize that. And then one of the other things too is that like, sure, weight can factor in to a certain degree, but I've seen a lot of people who are my size who look extremely healthy considered to, social media standards, who have like fully clogged arteries and their heart is like just a little weak sack that flops around. Like they have poor health. And then I've seen people who may be larger who have really great arteries and a really great heart. Like a lot of people don't understand that size doesn't really matter as much as they think it does. So
which thing are we talking about now? For what?
For like general health, just in general with your heart system.
The heart system. Okay, got it.
Yes. Because a lot of people are like, oh, you're overweight. Your arteries are probably clogged and your heart's going to fail. And it's like, depends on the situation, right? Like, and I think the biggest thing too, the biggest takeaway is just because you're skinny does not mean that you're fully healthy as people think. Because that would be something where we would sign out a case as like, oh yeah, it was cardiac related. And the family would be like, but I don't understand, they ran every single day, they exercised and they had this. And we're like, yeah, but it ultimately in the end didn't matter. And
meanwhile,
it could have
putting
been
butter in their coffee every morning.
Well, there's that. And
exactly.
It's also just genetics. Some people just have like high cholesterol no matter what they do. I've talked to people who are like, I'm trying everything. I'm like, you can do everything and it won't matter because your body's like, no, you suck. We're gonna take ourselves out.
Exactly. And that's what people forget.
Yeah, you need to take medication to lower your cholesterol or whatever. Like, get that shit checked. It doesn't matter what you look like on the outside.
Right. And that's why, like, a lot of people think, too, just because we're mostly working with decedents and dead people, that we never work with living people. But we still have to work with their families. And so one of the things that we actually do, this was another forensic pathologist who told me this story, but, like, when we draw toxicology, we're not just looking for like drugs in the system, but we're checking like electrolytes and all these other things. But also we're testing for genetics. We want to see if they have a condition that is genetic. Because if they have children, we can then go over to them and be like, hey, actually, you have this condition. So one of the forensic pathologists that I'm friends with online, he was telling me that he had someone who passed away from a genetic condition that they found out then. So he called the family and was like, just so you know, it's genetic. You guys should probably go and get checked up.
That's actually really nice to like have that information. Yeah.
And so they did, and these kids did have it, and because they caught it so early, they were able to take care of it and have it managed, so they didn't have to worry about dying from it necessarily, because I think this person that was passed away didn't know that they had it.
Right.
So now the family knows, and it's something they can keep an eye on and work with. So I always tell people, it's not just a dead people job. You also have to see what's going on with the situation. We had a case of hantavirus a little while ago. That we did, and we were trying to figure out like how they got it, because we went through a whole like differential, and because we're confused, and then we found out that this person works on a farm and has like this shed where apparently they recorded getting bitten by a mouse or whatever it was that was in there. And so when we found out for sure that it was hantavirus, the forensic pathologist went and talked to the family and was like, hey, just so you know, don't go into that shed, like, unless you're all protected, like, make sure we got to clear out the mice, because that is what happened, and that's how this person died. So now the family can be proactive about taking care of themselves. So there's a lot of public health that goes.
Whereas like back in the day, someone died, they're like, whatever, just keep doing your thing. And then like their family would die too from the same thing. Like, we don't really know. Miasmas and stuff.
One of my biggest pet peeves ever is when people sign out the cause of death as cardiac arrest, because it's not a cause of death. So cardiac arrest,
it's the stopping of the heart, right?
That's it.
But like,
which we want to know what made that happen, right? Because every single time someone dies, their heart's gonna stop. And
wait, really? And so it doesn't just kind of keep going for.
Yeah. Are you telling me you've never cut into a body where the heart is?
I know, it's shocking, but I will tell you that people get really mad about this when I say it. I posted a video about this on TikTok, and TikTok had to automatically put on anti-bullying protection in my comment section because people were so upset about it. And I was trying to explain, like
heart disease can lead to the cardiac arrest, right? But like it's not the.
The reason we don't want it is because it's not specific. So, like, someone could die from a gunshot wound. Their heart's still going to stop. They're going to go into cardiac arrest. They could have an illness or, like, a genetic condition. Or they could have been hit by a car.
And you write cardiac arrest. You're like, well, kind of,
Right. And so there are a few things that kind of go with that. Like, cardiopulmonary arrest is kind of the same deal. Your lungs are going to stop working when you die. There are, like, things that are mechanistic part of death where every single person, their brain's going to stop functioning. They're going to experience anoxia. Their heart's going to stop working. Their lungs are going to stop. Sometimes, yes. But, like, those things are just part of dying. And so we already know that happened. And so I hate it because you'll see a lot of, like, news articles where they're like, I think it was, like, with Hulk Hogan or something, too, who just passed. They were like, well, they said cause of death is cardiac arrest. And I was like, the fuck they did. No. And so then later, I think they like fully reported on it and whatnot. But you see it all the time. And usually what happens is like our forensic pathologists have to review the different death certificates that come through, depending on like, jurisdiction and all that. But if one comes through that says cardiac arrest, we will be like, denied. Call the physician who signed this out and make them change it. And in bigger areas where there's so much going on, that might not happen. So sometimes families will have their deceased family members' death certificate signed out with cardiac arrest as a cause of death. And that's not accurate. And it really sucks that it happens. But it's usually those people too. A lot of them do like to learn, but then they get sad because now they don't know what the cause is. But then there are some people who are very adamant. I was once called a coward in a white coat because the person was so mad at me. It turns out they're an ER physician, and they were so mad at me because I said that. And I was like, well, number one, you can't do any of your job without the help of pathology. So, but I was like, this is something they don't really teach other people in medicine how to fill out death certificates. You kind of just learn it on the job. And so then they, their elder physician has told them like, oh, if we don't know what happened, just sign it out as cardiac arrest, when that's not accurate. And death certificates kind of go by like, you sign them out based on your like medical opinion. It doesn't have to be 100% true because obviously you don't know unless you get an autopsy, and we can't autopsy every case. But people tend to get freaked out by that. And so if they don't know, they just put cardiac arrest and they leave it like that. Yeah. And so that is my biggest pet peeve. Whenever I teach medical students, I will always tell them, if you put that on a death certificate, I'm going to come back and haunt you. Like,
give me 1 second. My car's in the shop and they called to ask me something. I think I got to get something fixed or whatever. So yeah, you got to keep going. Whoa.
That's okay, because like we just rolled right into this. 50 minutes later, you have been listening to Julia. I'm trying to think what I'm afraid to touch my computer in case anything else breaks. Was it My Forensic Path, I believe?
Yes. So I'm on Instagram and TikTok as My Forensic Path.
And I think people have figured out by this point you are a forensic pathologist. If
so
you'd like to introduce yourself further.
Yeah, so I'm not a forensic pathologist quite yet, but I worked as a forensic autopsy technician for 5 years. I also got my bachelor's degree in forensic science and biology, and then I got my master's degree in pathogenesis of human disease. So I'm working on applying to medical school. Given that a certain bill was passed, it makes it quite hard for people who are low income like me and first gen like me to afford medical school now. So I've had to kind of put it on a little hiatus, but I'm going to get there one day. But I spent a lot of my time teaching medical students. I trained all of our new technicians, things like that. I've taught some forensic science classes. So I have a lot of passion for it, and I want to get people more involved, help them understand so, they don't fall for the weird little myths that are spread online about it.
Or in TV shows.
Yeah, in TV shows especially. Oh my gosh.
There's definitely a big rise of that true crime stuff and all the, Dexter shows like that.
The crime TV shows. I do enjoy like some shows here and there, and I will be one of those typical people that, calls out every inaccuracy when I'm watching it, because that's just how I am. But there's a lot of people who will see things and automatically think that that's how it works, when in reality it doesn't, right? Like, they're cramming everything into an hour-long episode, and some people are shocked when I tell them, like, when we're testing for DNA, it can take up to a year to get a result back on that. It doesn't take, 20 minutes like it would in a TV show, and so it takes a lot of time. But
okay, but what TV show has the scene that like pissed you off the most?
That's a good one. From Bones. God. I'm assuming it's from Bones. It's got to be from Bones.
So actually, funny story. One of our forensic pathologists knew one of the forensic anthropologists who consulted for an episode of Bones, and then watched that episode later. And that forensic anthropologist was so embarrassed by how they portrayed it that she didn't even want to be associated with the show anymore.
Wow.
But
it's drama, right? They got to play it. They got to create something crazy.
Yeah. So like, no forensic anthropologist is going to be going out into the field and carrying a gun like an officer. Like, that just doesn't happen.
Right.
And so, oh gosh, which show made me the most annoyed? I think there's just a lot of little things. I would say I like the show Dexter. Obviously, it's like from the point of view of someone who is a killer, so it's different. But the way that they showcase forensics, and the guy is like super creepy and weird, and like in a bunch of episodes, he'd be like, "Oh, this dead chick is so hot. Look at her." And I'm like, no, absolutely not. That definitely made me more annoyed. And like, just in general, in forensics, you specialize like in one thing. Even if you go into like forensic chemistry, for example, you're not doing all of forensic chemistry. You're typically doing one thing. So you're doing like seized drugs, specifically like cocaine, or you're doing just alcohol, or like just these things. So when you see shows like NCIS, where poor Abby is doing every single thing in the show, that's not how that works. Like, the labs are filled with different people trying to do different things, and they're very careful about it. But you gotta have
character development. We can't have character development for 38 people. We need one person.
Exactly.
And they do all of it.
And it's funny because a lot of people will actually tell me that I'm Abby from NCIS, because typically, like, when I do my makeup, I have more of a goth kind of vibe going on. Yeah. And I'll be like, well, actually, my goal is to be like Ducky, so I'm probably more like Palmer right now, but you got the spirit.
Is there a higher percentage of goth people in this field than any other field, do you think? Or is that like, it's one of
I don't know. I think more goth people tend to actually go for like mortuary science. That's where I see it. And the funny thing is that a lot of the people that I have met in forensic pathology in some kind of way, it's more like 60 to 70% of the people are actually very like bright and pink and happy and love colors kind of a thing. And then the rest of us are more of the alternative people, which is something that I did not expect. But it's like, we're the stereotype for it though. And so I'm like, I fit in here. How did you get here?
Oh. What show do you think does like do you have a show that does like the best job that you're like, oh, I love their forensic pathology. Like they do great.
Honestly, I don't know if I have a favorite.
No, they all kind of do the same shit.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing is like every show kind of shows, like if it's a hospital show, especially, it's always one pathologist who's just doing everything. And in every single show, they make them weird and creepy to some extent. Like, my favorite show is Psych. I love that show so much.
Psych.
And I love, and I love the guy who plays, like, the forensic pathologist in that. But, like, nothing he does is good. And so, obviously, you don't want to be like that. It's not a good representation. But I love the show. It's great. But, yeah, no, there's a lot of shows really don't showcase
Have you seen
it well.
Death in Paradise?
I haven't, no.
I have.
I was going to get you to rate it, but if you haven't seen it.
I'll have to watch it, and then I'll let you know.
I think I have seen that. Isn't that like a British show or something? Or is that an American
it's show? British that takes place in a fake Caribbean island.
I was going to say, it's like a tropical. Yeah. Like, that was good. The first season. The second season was stupid. Don't watch that. But watch the first season.
Okay, first season only. Good.
I remember
I'll be sure to do that.
Okay, the show, because they actually changed the lead on the show.
I don't like that. I get mad at that.
It's weird the first time they do it, and he doesn't fit in quite well because you're used to Richard Poole. But that season where they change, actually that's season 3 that they change over. Season 3 and season 4 are kind of an adjustment period, but then it gets good again.
I don't like when they change it. When I get a new doctor, I get mad.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting because that show, they changed the lead instead of the supporting actors.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't like that. That made me upset. Liam was angry at that.
That was like one of the reasons why I stopped watching The Witcher, because they changed the main guy, and I was like, I can't get used to that.
Yeah, now it's like
it's
Liam.
Just too weird.
It's like my namesake, Liam Hemsworth or whatever. I was like, no. It's not. That's not who's
not
supposed to
good
be
anymore.
But before we go, I definitely want to get any more like fun stories you got, just like from like your time that, like, because I'm sure you've seen a lot of things. You're like, whoa, that's weird or whatever, like that sort of stuff, because those are fun.
So actually, one crazy story I was telling the other day is I've had organophosphate poisoning from work. And for people who don't know what that is, organophosphates are the same thing that they used in World War I to kill people. It's a poison. It's a neurotoxin. And so it's actually something that can be naturally produced. They used to have organophosphates in things like fertilizer. Okay. And most of it's been phased out, so people don't get that exposure anymore.
Oh, okay.
But we had a person, so in the state that I'm in, they apparently still had it in some fertilizer. So this person, unfortunately, had some mental health complications and decided to mix that fertilizer in with some water or something, and then they drank it. Oh. And so that we had this person come in, and I was doing the autopsy, and this was during like spring break too. So I was working a whole bunch because all the other students wanted to go and, have fun and do stuff that's not work related, and I was too poor for that. So, whatever.
I feel that.
Yeah. And so I was the one who was mostly doing the case, and we had the forensic pathologist there, and then there were 2 other techs. One was just cleaning as we went, so that way when we were done, we could kind of just like mop and then go. So he wasn't really near the decedent at all. And then the other one, who's like the full-time person who was there, she was kind of just like helping me hold things, because once I opened them, they were a lot more liquidy inside than what we usually do, so it was hard for me to hold. It was really weird. They just had a lot of like ascites, so like fluid buildup in the abdomen, and I don't know the exact mechanism behind that. I haven't read into it in a while, but because of that, we were opening them, and it was harder for me to hold things, because I can usually do like, we call it end block. So that's where I would take out the neck and I leave everything connected. So I just lift all of the organs up and cut it from where it attaches to the spine and hand it off. And that takes me maybe 10 minutes, like at the most for normal people. I can just grab it, cut it, and go. But then for this person, because they were so liquidy, I couldn't hold them. So I would get little towels, because we have a bunch of them, to try to hold, and then that towel would get soaked, so I couldn't, and I'd have to keep swapping them out. So I was fully like over this person for probably 30 minutes, breathing in everything. And then the forensic pathologist took it, put everything in water just in case, because he thought once he started to open stuff, that's when things would be potentially released that might be hazardous. But no, they were off-gassing organophosphates. So after work, I was actually going to a Slipknot concert.
Of course.
That was about an hour away.
Does.
Yep. So I was driving there and I was like, man, I have a crazy migraine right now, but I have chronic migraine. So I was like, it's normal. And then like my eyes were kind of watering and my nose was running. And I was like, I got seasonal allergies. It's, spring break. So I was like,
from
normal.
The ear.
Right. Yeah. And so I drive all the way out there and I go and pick up my friend. And usually I like to say I'm a really good driver, but I noticed like I was like running over curbs, and like when I would step on my brakes, I'm usually very like careful about it, but I was like slamming on them. And my friend was like, my God, like, are we going to die today? And I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I feel fine. So we went to this concert and like I was so excited. Just everyone there, I loved them. And so in between sets, I would like feel my migraine and I'm like, holy shit, like this is horrible. But then the next set would start and I'd get excited and forget about it. So I would keep listening. And at the end of the night, I took my friend home and I drove back, realized I forgot all of my stuff at his place. Didn't even remember it. Like, didn't remember driving home, nothing. Like, it was gone. And I was like, what happened? So I go to bed, and then I get up in the morning and go to work again. And so the two forensic pathologists that I worked with, they're married. So his wife came in and, like, busted into the office that I was in and was like, did you have any of these symptoms? And I was like, yeah, but I always do. So, like, what's the difference? And she's like, no. Like, you guys got organophosphate poisoning. And so she's like, if you have, like, diarrhea and all this stuff, like, then you need to go to the hospital and get treatment for it because it's really bad. Like, that kills people.
Just from breathing in what he drank. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And so I was sitting there because I had never heard of it before. So I started looking it up. And yeah, it's a neurotoxin. And so it basically inhibits, I believe, acetylcholinesterase. And basically what allows you to move your muscles. So people would become paralyzed. And then when you can't move your diaphragm, you can't breathe anymore. And I was like, holy crap, oh my God. And so then the one doctor who also was there, he also had it pretty bad. And he was laughing. He's like, yeah, last night I was salivating like I was at a Golden Corral. And I was like, oh, great.
Damn. If that doesn't tell you the dose makes the poison, I don't know what does.
Right?
Right.
Oh, yeah. It was really crazy. And I remember I didn't have those specific symptoms, but memory loss is one of them. And typically my short-term memory isn't the best. I have ADHD, I got problems. And so I just, things come and go. But like, I had pretty significant gaps of time for like 2 months after that where like just things would go.
But you didn't have to go to the hospital or anything?
No, thankfully I was okay. But I remember I told one of the ED physicians I work with about it, and he goes, you didn't get treatment? And I was like, well, I don't know. I can't afford that.
Yeah, please. I was just about to say, we're in America. We can't afford
I was like, are you kidding me? And he laughed, and I was like, yeah, exactly. I'm just going to tough it out. Either, I make it and I'm fine, or I
end
die.
Up where I work. Like, that's just how it happens.
I was like, either way, it is what it is.
I'm going into work one way or another.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. There was one time that we had such a bad snowstorm. Like, my car was buried. So I remember texting them and was like, sorry, I can't come into work today. My car is buried under snow, so I can't get out. And they're like, don't worry, we'll come get you. And I was like, what? They show up in the coroner truck, and this is like almost a lifted pickup truck, so that way they can go through bad weather. They pull up in front of my apartment building, and it says on the side, like in giant block letters, coroner, county coroner. And so I had to run outside through the snow and climb in there while everyone's staring at me. And I was like, great, thank you. I was so excited for a day off.
If you got like poison from that, has there been like coroners or anyone like, autopsy, like assistants or anyone that's died from like doing an autopsy? I'm assuming that's going to be very rare. I mean,
so it is. There's like certain things that we won't do for the safety of the people who are performing the autopsy. Like one of the biggest things is like CJD, Creutzfeldt-Jakob. I think you pronounce it that way.
Yeah, mad cow disease or what?
Yeah. So we like most offices won't do that. There are specific offices in the country that will. So like we won't even touch the case. I know one of them I think is in Western Michigan. And so some will go there, but otherwise, like, no office is capable of doing those things. So yeah, we won't do it for a while when COVID first started, because I first started my job like right before the pandemic happened. And so we weren't taking cases that had COVID because we were too afraid of like the transmission of it and how it was working. And because at the time, we didn't know. And then once we started to learn a little bit more, we were able to take some more cases, but we had to wear like a full PAPR unit and like all this stuff to make sure. And so we like slowly started accepting those cases depending on the situation. And then, there are different precautions that we'll take just in case. Usually transmission rates are pretty low for those types of things, but it's still like, if you cut yourself or whatever, you got to go in, like you get tested for all these things. I poked myself once and I was like under observation for like 9 months to make sure I didn't get like HIV or any of the HEPs or anything like that.
Have you ever got someone with rabies? I've always thought that's like the worst way to die. It's like one of the worst ways. So
we thought we did for one case, but it ended up being just outside of the window for rabies, and how it, oh gosh, I can't remember off the top of my tongue the word for it, but how it like functions, it goes through a process. So we were just outside of that time frame where it would have worked because they were bitten by a dog or something like that. But they died like, I think it was like 90 to 100 days later, which is just outside that window, I believe. And so we were like, okay, well, it's not that. So now we have to go back to the drawing board to kind of see what might be going on. I don't know why I have a fear of rabies,
but I just do, like, I don't work around any like animals, but like that shit's just like, as soon as you're like, that's it. There's no, like, if you get the vaccine or whatever within the time frame, or, you can get that. But
like right away. Because I keep seeing videos on TikTok now, like when I'm just scrolling, and they're like, I found a bat in my closet.
Or like, get that shit out of here.
Yeah, and I was like, are you kidding me? Because now I'm like, is this just a common thing that people are getting bats in their house all the time? And that scared the crap out of me.
I don't like
and
rabies.
So now I'm always paranoid. Because, it's not good. I'll say that from, like, case reports I've read. I've never seen a death from it, but it's not great.
Fucking hot take. Rabies bad.
Right, yeah. Who would have guessed?
Don't like it.
Yeah, no, but there's always different like limitations to cases. I think I mentioned earlier there's different laws about like what we can take and what we don't need to take. And so I think in situations where it is more dangerous, if they're comfortable, they would probably just sign it out. Like if someone went to a hospital and was diagnosed with rabies and then they died, the coroner or the medical examiner, whoever like oversees this case, depending on where it is, they'd probably look at it and be like, yep, we're comfortable just having you guys sign that out. We don't need to autopsy it. Like, we're good.
That's fair. So do you think we should get rid of the coroner thing? Where are you at with that? Should people not be running for office as coroner? Or
personally, I think it needs an overhaul. There are some counties or some states where they do have a law saying like the coroner has to be a physician. And at least if they have medical experience, I think that helps because then they can look at a situation and know whether it needs an autopsy or not. But other places, I think.
But if your last job was like Chuck E. Cheese or something, and then you go in with dead bodies, I'm like, I don't know.
That's not my favorite thing in the whole world. I don't really want that person deciding whether I need an autopsy or not in case something happens.
I'm assuming they get some kind of training, but still, I don't know.
Yeah, some places do have you get like certified where you have to do like death investigation training and other places don't. Man. So you kind of just show up. And then the like caveat to all of that is that we would have to have enough staffing to be able to make up for that. Like if we're going to require that only physicians are coroners, then we need to have enough physicians who would be willing to do that. And so that's the hard thing because like a lot of medical students, when they go to med school, they either don't even know that forensic pathology exists. They think all of pathology is just looking at a microscope, in the basement of the hospital all day. So they don't know it's a thing. And a lot of people I've met where they've like become an established professional in their field, they're like, man, if I could go back, I would have gone into forensic pathology. And I'm like, that's why more people need to know about it because, it gives people options.
Before we go, like, what do you want people to know about like forensic pathology? Or is there things that like, you're like, I wish people knew this?
Yes. So I have a few little things that are kind of intertwined. One of them is it's not just dead people. You can do so much within forensic pathology because also the way you get there is you do your 4 years of med school. You have to do a pathology residency. So the most common one is going to be anatomic and clinical pathology. You have to at least do anatomic. And so that's about 4 years. And then you get to do a year-long fellowship in forensic pathology. So once you get there, you're also board certified to do these other things. So I know a bunch of forensic pathologists who have done both surgical pathology and they go and do forensic pathology. Or if they want to take a break, they work at a hospital for a bit. Pathologists do a lot of different things that people don't realize. And so it's more than just looking at a microscope and seeing tissues that are there and doing histology. There's a lot that goes into it. And because there is such a demand, a lot of people are talking about the demand for primary care physicians, which is really important. But right now in the country, I think there's only about 500 forensic pathologists. And in order to do everything that we would want to do, I think we need probably triple that amount, if not more.
Yeah, because there's 50
And
states. I'm not great at math,
mhm.
but that's like 10 per state. And like that's especially big, like
Yeah.
that's not that many.
Yeah, it's not great. And even some states might only have one,
Right.
or
Like,
maybe they
yeah.
have two, and then others have more. But like
Right.
the
Of course.
distribution
Yeah.
is hard. And yeah, and so that's one of the scary things is that, we have to find ways to entice people to come into forensic pathology. And really, when you do that, you kind of end up being a jack of all trades. I find it very similar to like emergency medicine, where you kind of have to know a little bit about everything to be able to do it, right? Because you can't go into forensic pathology and start doing an autopsy and be like, well, I didn't specialize in the kidneys. I'm not a nephrologist, so I don't know. Like, you can't just do that. Or like, sometimes we'll consult people, like we've consulted radiologists to look at x-rays, or we've consulted neuropathologists. We'll take out the brain and then you can stick it in formalin and mail it out and they'll look at it for a better analysis, like little things like that. But you can't obviously do that for every case. So you end up knowing so much about a lot of different things, and especially like surgeries. If a person's had a surgery, you got to know what it is and how it was done. Was it done correctly? And then like emergency medicine, like I talked earlier, was it done correctly? Things like that. So that way you know how to approach each case. And so you learn a lot. And that's what makes it, I think, one of the most exciting fields, is because it really keeps you on your toes.
Have you ever had a
Every
cop
day
be
is going
like,
to be
all right,
different.
I might have killed this person, but like maybe I pay you a little bit of money and maybe you say it was like cardiac arrest. Maybe
There was one time I was doing a case and it was an infant case. And because I'm was a senior tech, I always had to do all of like the children and the infant cases, which kind of sucked. But I did my job because I knew it was important.
Yeah.
And so we were doing this one and this officer was there who was watching and he was insistent that it was a homicide. And we're like, okay, well, like we're going to do our job. We're going to look and all that. And offered him a chair and whatnot to sit. And he's like, no. And you could tell he was grumpy. And he was like this far away from me, like just hovering and watching me. And I was like, my God, okay. Because I was also trying to teach a little bit to some of the other techs at the time. Like they weren't doing anything, but I was trying to explain what I was doing. And so we get through the whole thing and this guy's like, so it's a homicide, right? And we're like, no, like there's nothing here that shows that this is a homicide. And so the situation surrounding this was like, homeless woman, just had baby, was sent home from hospital right away without any kind of care plan and process. And at that time, you could only stay in the shelter for so long. And so they went to stay somewhere else where they ended up co-sleeping and a woman rolled over, stuff like that.
Okay.
And so very, very sad. Obviously
Yeah,
not
incredibly
great.
sad,
But my suspicion and the suspicion of other people in the office, this was a homeless person, first of all, but also a woman of color. And so And so they kept saying, like, well, it's a homicide. And we're like, no, like, there's nothing here to suggest that there was anything of that nature.
Just like
here.
an incredibly tragic case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we finish the case. This guy stomps out. We get a phone call like 30 minutes to an hour later. This guy went and complained to his boss saying that we're all stupid and incompetent. We don't know what we're doing. We didn't even let him sit down, so he had to stand the whole time. And we're like,
just
what?
mad.
Like this?
Just
yeah.
mad.
Oh yeah. And just like this whole thing. And so he called our boss, like the head forensic pathologist. So then she called us and was like, what happened? And so we went through the case and she's like, oh yeah, they can fuck off. Like,
yeah.
And thankfully, like, I'll say most forensic pathologists have really good integrity about this. I don't know everyone, and there are definitely instances of corruption. There's actually an award for forensic pathologists that they give out every year who stands up for the right reason against people who are trying to bribe them.
That's actually really good. I hope the medal's like a graveyard or something, like a tombstone.
Right? That would be so cool. I've never seen it, but I know the one forensic pathologist I worked with got it.
I would be very disappointed.
It would be very, very cool. I should look it up and see because it was actually made. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but in like right outside New York City, there was that prison, and they had the prison riot like way back when, and that's when like the officers went in and just like shot everyone, and then tried to blame it on the prisoners to make them look bad, and they were like, don't tell everyone that we went in there and killed them. Because I think they even killed some of their own people when they went in and did this. It starts with an A. That's all I can remember. But yeah, the forensic pathologist who did all those autopsies noticed that the bullets matched their guns, not anything that the prisoners had. And like they tortured some of these prisoners, like made them walk over broken glass, like all that stuff. And so they tried to pay off the forensic pathologist to not say anything. They even threatened him, threatened his family. Like he had to get protection set up, but he still stood up for what he knew was right and spoke out about it. And so that was who they made the medal or the award for. That's yeah. And so that's something that's pretty big. And that's why we always try to emphasize that, like, we don't work for cops or for the FBI. We work alongside them, but we're independent because we need to be able to form our own opinion. And sometimes officers aren't going to like it. But if I'm being honest, sometimes officers are stupid. Like, that's just kind of how it is. And some of them have asked me the most ridiculous questions, and I was like, are you okay? Like, one of them insisted that we would take, so after a case, when the forensic pathologist is cutting up the organs and stuff, we take little sections that we'll put into a stock jar. And this is kind of reassurance. Like, let's say we're really banking on toxicology to come back saying this person overdosed, and they didn't. Now we don't have the body anymore because it takes, for us, it was really fast. It was about 2 months for these results to come back. So obviously they're not with us. We have to send them on their way. So now we have to figure out what actually happens. So now they have these sections of tissue that they've saved in this jar that they can take out and look at again to see what else is going on. So
and did the cop ask you if it was a trophy?
He
I'm trying to figure out what the cop, like, what could they possibly, like, you...
So it was them. I think there was also, like, the fire chief or whoever that was there, but they were like, oh, yeah, so you guys put these in water and you freeze it and you store it in a fridge, right? And we're like, no, this is formalin. And they're like, no, I'm pretty sure that's water. And I was like, you want to drink it and we'll test it? Like, no, it's not water. Because then I was trying to explain to him, like, when you freeze tissues, it destroys the tissue, right? Because the water is expanding and it's stretching, all that stuff. And they're like, no. And I was like, okay. Yeah. I was like,
standing outside naked in minus 40 degrees is bad.
Oh, yeah. We've done a lot of frozen cases. When they freeze, obviously you can't cut into them right away. So we always say you have to thaw them like a turkey, where you bring them out for a little bit, you put them back in the cooler for a bit, bring them out, that kind of a thing. Because once you start to melt, you decomp right away. Like, you will see the turns so fast. And so we're trying to preserve everything we can. So I was like, yeah, if we were to do something like that and bring it out in 2 months, that tissue is going to be goo. Like, that would not help our purpose at all. So there's no reason to do that. But no, there's a lot of crazy things that happen, and there's definitely bits of corruption. That's kind of earlier what I was almost getting into as well, is like when you have ex-cops who are coroners going to these things. I think there was a study done, I don't remember for sure, where they actually saw that, like, a lot of cases, if cops were involved, would be signed out as like an accident when it should have been a homicide. And for us, homicide is a medical term. So it just means that someone was involved in your death. Doesn't necessarily say that there's guilt or that there wasn't reason. Like, it could have been self-defense, something like that, whatever.
Okay. Wasn't necessarily manslaughter.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's when it gets into law speak, and that's past our, expertise. Yeah. But yeah, so then cases weren't being done appropriately. And so there's a lot of, like, issues with people doing that. And, I'm sure there are great ex-cops out there who are, coroners that try to do things correctly. But also it's like, it's just inherently a conflict of interest. And so there's that big issue that's there.
So, yeah. So, okay. So the cops aren't always invited to your parties that you throw, basically.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because, like, when we worked, every time we think that something could be a homicide, we would always ask them to come. And most of the time they would, but sometimes they'd be like, no. And we're like, no. What do you mean no? And so, yeah, so the system, just generally, the death investigation system really isn't great. And I watched an interview the other day by Dr. DeMau. So he's like pretty big in pathology. And so he wrote like some of the big textbooks that we all learn from and whatnot. And so he was talking, he's like, the death investigation system is horrible. It sucks. It's really bad. And the interviewer was like, well, this person says otherwise. And he's like, well, that person's wrong. But there's a lot that goes into it. And ultimately it comes down to just resources because people forget about us, right? Like, we don't get a lot of money because you're not thinking about the fact that you might need death investigation.
It's over.
And that's just the end of it. And so then, it's hard to hire new people to come in, and it's hard to get people certified or get them to have higher qualifications because they want better pay and things like that.
To quote, what was it? The Mummy, death is only the beginning. That's like your job. Death is only the beginning.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing. There was a quote that I really liked from this book I read. It was from a forensic anthropologist. He kind of talked about his life. He's the one who started the body farms that they have a few around the United States where they do research on this stuff. So that's how we get a lot of our information. But he was saying, at the end of the day, I can't bring back your loved one. I can't make everything better. But what I can do is give you the truth. And that is like the biggest honor a scientist can give at the end of the day is the truth. So you can start to understand, you can grieve and go through your process, and you can heal. And that's as much as we can do. And that is still a pretty big job.
And in some cases, save further lives with the genetic testing and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Sometimes there's more that goes into it and we can do more.
What I'm getting from this is make sure you get your cholesterol checked and watch out for heart disease, and your coroner or whoever examines you will get to know you very well. So understand that with what you keep on your body.
Yeah. Also, if you can, shave your head because going through hair is so hard.
Totally.
If you can just be naked, that would also be great. Saves a lot of time.
Some people are going to be very excited about this information.
Yeah. That's our favorite thing. We'd open up a body bag and we're like, everyone, they're naked. This is great. And so then we don't have to worry about inventorying. And so we're all excited. Or like someone who is bald will come in and we're like, yes. Because then on one hand, it makes it a little bit more difficult for the funeral home because they have to hide the incision that we make so we can go in to get the brain. But for us, it's great because we try to we'll separate the hair and I'll tie it up so that way I'm not cutting all your hair off. But some people have such thick hair and I'm like, I'm so sorry as I go through. Or one of the things that we had to be careful about working with reservations is the indigenous people around us have that spiritual connection with their hair too. So whenever I would cut some of it off by accident, I tried really, really hard not to. But if I did, I would gather it and then I put it back with the body so it stays with them. So there are little things like that. So I always tell people, if you can, just shave your head. Take off your clothes.
Shave your head and be naked. Those are the two main takeaways from this.
Would be great.
Any bald guys out there that are worried about losing the hair, don't worry. There's a forensic pathologist excited to see you.
We say thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I see people like that, I'm like, yeah. That would be a great one.
Well, make sure before you go, you introduce yourself because we never did that. You probably should tell people.
Oh, don't worry. We did that while you were checking your car.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Great. Everything's fine, by the way. There was a big metal piece that was stuck under my car. I thought something was dragging on the floor or the ground or whatever, but there was just a big metal shard just under my car. I don't know how it got there.
That's crazy. Oh my God.
After I murdered that guy, I did drive over this.
Yeah. Who would have guessed that something would be stuck behind? I've had mice start living in my car, which I didn't know was a thing that could happen. But in the winter, it gets so cold here that they are like, ooh, car warm. And so then they build their nest around my air filter and stuff. And so then my car will start to smell funky and I'll have to go get it switched out. And then you get
hantavirus or whatever that is.
Yeah. They'll come in and bite me. And I've done everything to try to keep these freaking mice out. And they just don't care. I think one will leave and just tells all their friends. And then they come back with more. And whenever I get my oil change, they'll look at it and be like, yeah, see you. And I'm like, I know I have mice again. Just replace it. It's fine. Clean it out. Whatever you got to do. And they're like,
what a thing to drive up to the mechanic and be like, listen, I know there's mice in there. I just need the oil changed.
And the guys are always like, well, do you park outside? And I'm like, no, I have a garage. So I don't even know how they're getting in.
That's
but
great.
Somehow they do it. And they're like, okay. And they're like, well, do you live in the country? No.
As a person that lives in the country in a cold area, that's your problem, is you're parking in the garage. Leave the garage for the mice, park outside.
Yeah.
Maybe put some mouse traps in the car. Just like, make sure you tell your friends before they get in there.
One time I was so angry about it. I was in like the poison section of Walmart looking at everything. And then I was like, yeah, great idea, Julia. Put poison in your air filter in your car. So you breathe it in when you drive everywhere. And so I walked away and I was like, I can't.
That death certificate's going to be real weird.
Right. They'll just find me like on the ditch of some road, just slumped in my car. And they're going to be like, oh, she's probably like high on drugs. No, I poisoned myself on accident.
Oh, man.
Who would have thunk? But no, it's always an interesting day here. I'm sure. I am excited to get back into it, hopefully, once I go to medical school. I was on a wait list for somewhere, and I was super excited about it. But I think I mentioned earlier, with the bill being passed, it's not really something I can afford to do right now. Because they limited how much you can take out in federal loans for students. And so I'm going to try to work for a little while. I actually just had an interview the other day for a full-time philanthropist position through the hospital. And I was like, I think my experience in forensic pathology and understanding public health gives me great qualifications for setting up community health guidelines, or not guidelines, but like events and helping people, because I know why y'all die. And let me tell you, a lot of the times we can avoid this together. And so I think that would be great. But hopefully... Yeah, exactly. I do a little bit of everything. So hopefully maybe next year or the year after I'll be able to reapply and maybe have some money saved up. Maybe have some family members willing to, sign their life away on some private loans. Go from there. Maybe I can get some scholarships or something too, but we'll see.
We'll start a GoFundMe.
Oh,
yes.
Shit. Yeah. I mean, all our healthcare is funded by GoFundMe now. Why not?
Oh, yeah. Right, like, please, I promise I'll be a good doctor. I promise I'll be really good about it.
I got cancer, the other day, and I'd like to not go bankrupt from it. Can anybody else help? America! Yeah!
Right? Oh my gosh, that's always, like, the saddest thing ever.
It's the fucking saddest shit.
Yeah, because it's like, no one should have to worry about that. Like, for a while, so like I mentioned earlier, I get chronic migraines, and I had one that just wouldn't go away, and I had it for like 4 or 5 days. And I even texted my friend. She's a physician's associate and she works in neuro. So I was like, hey, should I go to the doctor? Like, am I okay? Because I'm not going to spend money on it right now if I don't need to. And I was like, is this ER worthy or can I just wait to go see my neuro? And she's like, oh, yeah, no, you should be fine. Like, try some of these things. And I'm like, sweet, thank you. Because I'm already not really eating as much, trying to save money. So, like, if I have to shell out $1,000, not even $1,000, way more just to go to the ER, that's not going to do too great.
God, that's so crazy still.
It's fucking wild.
Yeah.
Every time you guys tell me about that.
So many people go bankrupt because, oh, my kid got this disease or, whatever it is, like all sorts. It's crazy.
We had in the emergency department a bit ago, there was this patient who came in who wanted to be seen, but then they were really upset because they're like, I want to be seen by my family medicine physician because my insurance won't cover anything else. And we're like, well, even if they do come to the ED, it's still going to count as an emergency department visit. So you still get the bill. And you could just tell how distraught they were trying to decide if they even wanted care in the first place. And I think we did have to, unfortunately, call the police because they were starting to threaten people. They were so upset. But I was like, at the end of the day, I get it. Should you be threatening healthcare staff? No. But that's
it's
hard.
Bullshit.
You might be dying right now and you can't
you
even
have to decide how much
it.
am I dying and how much money is dying worth. That's a situation that no one really should be in.
And that's something that we would see in forensics too. When we're doing autopsies, it would be very preventable conditions that if they could afford treatment, but they can't. And so then that's something we would have to get context for. And we would see that and be like, well, what are they supposed to do? They're in a system that's screwed up, that doesn't benefit them, unfortunately. And their options are limited. And some people in medicine don't get that. And so they'll be like, well, if you need it, then you need it. And it's like, that's not how that works, though. A while ago, I had to get a bunch of dental work done because I had one cavity that got really, really bad. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I have to go in and get this, but I just can't afford it right now. My friend was like, but you need it. Like that
Yeah.
stuff can spread and it can
Yeah.
like, you can get cardiac stuff, you can die from it. And I was like, cool, but I don't have $500 to shell out to get this fixed right now. Like I can't just, you know, do a little payment plan. They don't really do that. And so it took them a bit to understand.
And that's what's
finally
tough
was
is like that
oh,
500
well.
bill will turn into a $5,000, $10,000 bill
Yeah.
because you
Oh, yeah,
waited,
'cause
because you had
interest
to
and
wait,
whatnot.
because you didn't have, right.
Mhm.
It's expensive
Yeah.
to be poor.
Yes. Yeah, and it's so frustrating because I lost my dental insurance, I think when I was like 17 or something. And so I just never had it since then. And my dad had a good plan for us because he was a vet and whatnot. But like once I was off that, I was like, okay, so even like the tiniest cavity in the whole world that you need to get filled just to prevent problems is still $350. And I had like 12 of them because I only just started going to the dentist a few years ago. So it was like, what, 7 or 8 years later that I finally decided to go. And thankfully, like I could spread it out, but it was like, holy crap,
Yep.
this is a lot of money and I can't afford all of that. And then I had to get my wisdom teeth removed. And then I had an infection because of that killed off one of my other teeth and I had to get a root canal. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like it doesn't end. It just keeps building up. And now, you know, I probably have like $15,000 worth of debt just in my mouth. So my teeth are yellow, but they're expensive. So at least the comfort I have is if I die and they have to identify me, I got a great mouth for them to identify me with. So
That is
there's
the
no
smallest
worries
silver
about me
lining
being
I've
lost
ever heard,
forever.
but it is a silver lining nonetheless.
Yeah, it works out in the end, kind of, as long as I don't, you know, die horribly somewhere where no one knows who I am.
Oh, shit.
Hey, wasn't that a great time? Listen to the podcast. You were just, I'm assuming you were just listening to In Moderation. So if you go ahead and hit the 5-star button, is that a thing? The like button?
That's a thing.
No.
Yep.
The like button
5
on
stars.
YouTube. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, not the dislike button. That's a bad button. The
Bad
like
button.
button.
Don't touch.
Hit all the other buttons. The share. You can go check out
all those things.
Subscribe. Go check out our Patreon. We do have a Patreon. It's free to join if you want, or you could give us some money. That'd be really cool, like $1 or $2. It doesn't matter. Whatever you have.
That's where you'll find all the news for this.
We're super appreciative. You can find all sorts of other stuff there. We do giveaways, I think, sometimes. You know,
Sometimes.
all that good stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So, peace.